Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. Thank you all so much for being here. I got my buddy Chuck in the house. You guys might remember Chuck. It's been a while since we've done one together.
It's a couple months, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you're in town, you got to come by the studio.
There you go.
Kind of the rule of the game, right?
That's it.
That's it. We never get to do this in person. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Be sure, if you haven't done so already, to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. I appreciate all the comments. So if you want to get in the comment section, fire it up whenever the mood strikes you. But we got a lot to talk about today. Before we get into it, it's a good week. This is a good week. Easter week.
There you go.
Yeah. You know, it's it's one of those things we talk about all the garbage going on in the world. That's really what this podcast is about. It's to inform people about that. But we have to remember what really matters, you know, and in times like this, it's important. If you're not in a good church, I would highly recommend it. Just helps you get through I won't get into that.
You should get into it.
Yeah.
You should get into it.
It's one of those things that to understand what's going on in this world, that gives you the most unique perspective. I mean, I'm unapologetically conservative Christian, and that is, I was talking with the Braver Than the Rest guys, and we bring it up all the time, that politics has become part of the culture, but downstream from, it sits downstream from your worldview, which is developed generally by your faith, and everybody has faith in something. They have a God of any kind. It could be self, which is, selfish. It could be, money could be your God. Other things could be your God. But when you have that higher power, it puts all this in perspective and helps you identify what is and is not evil.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, creation is broken. The reason all of the world feels the way it does is because it was never designed to be this way, right? And, God sent his son Jesus to die an imperfect death that we deserved, so that we could spend eternity with him. And so if you're not a believing Christian and you have questions or comments about that, I encourage you to message Jared through the podcast, and he can point you to some good gospel-centered resources. But yeah, today is Good Friday, the day we celebrate and remember that Jesus died on the cross.
Absolutely. And now with that, let's go ahead and I wasn't planning on talking about that, actually. It just came to mind. But I was thinking about, this is going to be released after that. So this is Good Friday, April 18th, but it's probably going to go out on the 19th. Maybe on Monday, just depends. But yeah, it's important when this season, it's a reminder of what we're put here to do. Ultimately, we knew that as Christians, we were going to be put in a difficult situation, a trying situation, that we're going to be tested, we're going to be hated. And that's what the undertone that I try to keep in this podcast. While yes, I go out and I bash the political left because of the ideology that they are pushing on our youth, on our society, all that stuff. It really follows a lot of the underlying themes of it are, I believe, evil in nature.
Yeah,
and the only reason that we have a concept of that and an understanding of that is because of God, because of Christ. Yeah. The good and evil that is clearly present in the Bible and continues today, we got to make perspectives of it. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and get into, here we go. All right. So this MS-13 gang member, what's bugged me the most about this is the left, I haven't fully come up with the title for this yet, but I want to talk about the love affair that the left has with gang members. And, again, to reference Braver Than the Rest, we were talking about it, and it's not that this person isn't beyond redemption, but the fact remains he's part of an organization that terrorizes the people, that is violent. I mean, his knuckles carry the tattoos of it. I'll show the photo that you sent me here in a minute. And they're openly saying, well, we would rather support this criminal, this guy, for a political motives and political power than we would stand up for our own citizens, the safety and security of our own citizens.
That can't be true.
How is the question? How did we get to a point where this is a thing?
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you offering me the opportunity to come on here.
Yeah.
And I have a couple questions, if you're willing. Before we get to that, I should tell you guys, if he hasn't told you, this young man retired from the United States Army this week.
I did.
He spent 21 years bravely serving our country. You deserve recognition. We're proud of you. We're thankful for your service. Congratulations.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Yeah, 21 years. The last 10 were the reserves. 11 were in the reserves, but my first 10 active duty, and yeah, the end of an era.
We're grateful. We're grateful for you.
Thanks, dude.
So, on to this. I just have a couple questions.
Yeah.
If you'll afford me the opportunity to be, ignorant for a second. Now, we grew up in a place that doesn't, as far as I'm aware, I haven't lived here in a long time, but as far as I'm aware, doesn't have a lot of extremist gangs.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things we heard about growing up was gangs are what? Good or bad?
Oh, bad. Yeah.
Okay, just in general. Now, if I asked you, Jared, hey, there's a gang member that's been twice convicted by courts as a gang member, and by courts deported from the United States because he entered the country illegally, just reacting where we are, meaning where we physically are right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd heard that at 12 years old, how would you react? Would you say, hey, it's a good thing that this person isn't here, or it's a bad thing that this person isn't here?
It's a good thing that they're not here.
Because they broke the law by
Right.
entering the country illegally.
Yep.
That's not a debate. That's a categorical fact. And then also they've been twice convicted as a gang member.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those things would be bad.
Right.
Okay. Now, if I told you that a sitting senator from the state where this person was deported from traveled to the country where he immigrated from illegally to visit him in prison to espouse his condolences that he was mistreated and removed from the country that he entered illegally, would you say that you'd be shocked, or you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, you shocked. I mean, it defies all logic. They keep calling, and it's the veiled language too. They call him this Maryland man as though he's a citizen.
That's right. Yeah.
And just because
Maryland father is the way we've humanized this person.
Yeah.
And look, to your point, this man isn't beyond redemption. Like maybe he spent time in prisons and jails, and he's found his purpose in life, and he's become a good human being. But as the picture you're going to show points out, this man is a member of a terrorist organization. He's not. I'm not saying that he's going to go blow up a building. I'm saying that he has been a member, an active member, a Checkio, or whatever that title says in the other article. He is a member of MS-13 with it tattooed on his knuckles. Then that's not hypothetical. That's an actual picture.
Yeah, and his let me pull it up for everybody here. So the girlfriend of this guy, in his GoFundMe page, on all the social media, the posts that she's making, she puts like emojis over where his hand, he was like hugging her from behind. She puts emojis over his hand so you can't see his
Kisses
tattoos.
and hugs. Yeah.
Yeah, took Photoshop or something and blurred all the stuff on his GoFundMe, these same knuckle tattoos. And this is clearly Tren de Aragua. Or not Tren de Aragua, MS-13.
Yeah.
So
Because he's an actual member, or has been in the past, of MS-13. Again, that says nothing to his value as a human being. That says nothing to his value as a father in Maryland or a good boyfriend. I thought he was actually a husband because they published his
that's
name.
what I thought. She said wife, and even
wife,
this
wife
one,
Jennifer, I think. Right?
yeah. This is how they published it on
perfect.
here.
That's
It
why
says
they're covering
the
up
wife
his
of the
fans.
deported MS-13. Yeah,
Perfect. So he might be the father of the year, right? I hope he is. He might be the husband of the year, and I hope he is. I don't think that's the case based off of the evidence in all the other scenarios that we have. But if this person wants to immigrate to the United States legally, then he can do that. But for a sitting United States senator to travel to this person's home country of El Salvador to visit a twice convicted, deported, illegal immigrant with your taxpayer dollars makes me mad, and I'm not a resident of Maryland. I don't even have that to be. And bless her heart, the mother of the murdered mom from Maryland, a murdered mother of 5, Rachel Moran was her name. The mother was in the White House yesterday, and she said, you know what, this senator has never come to visit me. So the mom of a murder victim, the murderer was from El Salvador, where this gentleman is from, was never visited by her senator, but that same senator chose to go to an El Salvadorian prison with taxpayer dollars to visit a twice convicted, deported illegal immigrant. Now, again, I reflect on. I'm gonna send it back to you. I know I talk a lot.
No, you're fine.
I'm sending it back to you. I just don't understand, right? If you make things easy, and we're gonna get into something else in a minute, I know, but if you just make things more simple than we've created as a society to make them, you can't make that make sense. If I told you, if you're a resident of Montana or New York or Nowheresville, and you said, hey, would you like a twice convicted gang member who's in the country illegally as a neighbor? And somebody's like, oh yeah, absolutely. You need to move. You need to leave where you're living.
You know, there's some man on the street things where they'll they literally bring guys that they picked up at Home Depot, and I think they're just actors or whatever, but they look like they're just Mexican dudes, and they'll have a petition, and they'll find yards that have had Biden signs in it, and they'll say, hey, would you like to sign our petition to house illegal immigrants?
Right.
And they say, oh, yes, absolutely. They sign the petition, and they go,
a whole van
and they'll
full.
go,
Yeah.
Jorge.
Yeah, that's right.
And he comes running up. They're like, well,
no, we're full. We can't,
oh, we can't right now. We can't do that.
I haven't met him yet. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's the same thing with the student loans, right? That they say, yes, I believe in student loan forgiveness or the federal government paying back student loans. And they say, okay, just write on our petition here how much of your check you would like to donate every month.
Right.
Oh, well, I can't, it's just such, it's a complete, I was going to say it's a lack of common sense, but that's not really it. You're not living in reality. You don't understand where the federal government gets its money. You don't understand that the burden that you're sitting there posting on your Instagram or your Facebook saying, bring them all in, everybody's a citizen of this world, whatever. They don't understand the ramifications in small towns across America or in, even in the big cities and the burden that it's been on them. There's a town in, I'll say reported, I was talking about it months ago. It was before Donald Trump had even won the election.
Sure.
And it was a town of 25,000 people that had something like 35 or 40,000 illegal immigrants in it.
Yeah. Eagle Pass, Texas. So you and I were in Southwest Texas for work last week, and fun we get to work together sometimes. But yeah, I mean, that town is close to the border and experiences an unimaginable tax on the town because of the immigration crisis that's occurred. Right?
Well, and the one I'm thinking of wasn't Eagle Pass. It was actually up north. It was somewhere in,
But I mean, Eagle Pass, that's happened, and that's right there near where we were. And yeah, I'm making up a number, but Eagle Pass is a town of 20,000, and they had, on any given month in the Biden administration, 30 or 40,000 illegal immigrants in the town, above and beyond the population, right? And so, yeah, that's decimating for human services. That's decimating for grocery stores, for restaurants, for everything.
Well, and this has always been my argument for illegal immigration is unsustainable when you have a social safety net like we do.
Right.
This is where we've seen the fraud, waste, and abuse and all that mess. And that's theft. That's theft in and of itself, taking from the taxpayers and giving it to someone who hasn't paid into the system. But
wait, hold on a second. Do you mean like the $50 million that the EPA was sending to Palestine for climate control and crisis? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sidebar. Go ahead.
Well, the argument that people make and the reasoning behind it is that, okay, you're bringing these people in here who are destitute. They're escaping some sort of persecution, whatever it happens to be. But with the lack of vetting, which I've been harping on for years now, the lack of vetting means you're putting your own people at risk for the sake of catching a couple or bringing in a couple of people out of the millions that came across that are actually destitute.
Right.
If you come from Venezuela because you voted for socialists and now you're starving to death and you have an opportunity to take back your government and to revolt and do whatever you got to do to establish yourself as a democratic society, you got that option. But instead you say, boy, we made a mess of it here. Well, let's go to America where they give us taxpayer money that we don't have to pay into. And, and I will go ahead and for anybody that's a hater about this, even the people who say, oh, well, they pay taxes. They paid $65 billion in taxes. Correct, and we spent $200 billion taking care of them. So that's a net negative, I would say, for the taxpayer.
Only if you do math. So I mean, I don't want you to work real hard at that, but only if you do math. So,
But it's
'cause-
not. It's also not humane to put your own people at risk.
and which is why, yeah, it's exactly right, and that's why this is such an important issue. Whether it's you're in Southwest Texas by the border, or if you're in Maryland and you're Rachel Moran's mom, or if you're in Georgia and you're Laken Riley's family, putting your people, your own citizens, at risk for the sake of, a humanity statement about everybody is welcome isn't actually making things welcome. Is it actually making things safe? I work at a big global corporation, and they send the best and brightest to the United States, meaning, I won't betray anybody's confidence, but like I talked to a colleague from China, and I said, hey, what made you want to move to the United States? And she said, Chuck, we aim to send our best to the United States because it's such a privilege to be able to be in the United States. Like, oh my gosh, if you get that opportunity. I'm sure that's true for the world. And on a humanity level, if this is the best place on planet Earth to live, which it is, or historically has been, that functionally makes sense. But it's not humanity if you're not taking care of your own citizens. It's not humanity if you're not doing what's right by the people that pay for the lights to be on in your building.
Yeah. And, as if this guy's situation wasn't revealing enough about how we've moved towards, what's good will be called evil, and what's evil will be called good, right?
Amen.
We kind of know that's coming down the pipe and is already here. But we've kind of got the same thing when it comes to, this kid who, and we could debate about well, let me put it this way. Tim Pool has made huge waves online saying that this was self-defense. He says, no, you get to decide how you respond to someone putting their hands on you, grabbing you, pushing you, whatever. That in the self-defense scenario, this is an argument he's making. We can talk about this one. But, he gets to determine what level of force to respond, and if he feels that he's in danger, he has a right to protect himself because the Metcalf kid basically approached him first and pushed him. Mm-hmm. My argument against that is that, he's the level of escalation, first off, but...
I have questions.
You have questions?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go for it. Ask your question.
Jared, our freshman year in high school, I don't know if you remember this. We skipped school. I think it was we skipped school. I think that's what happened. Mm-hmm. You and I got in trouble. And we went into one of our administrator's offices, and he said, hey, we're going to handle this here. And do you remember what our sentence was?
Mm-mm.
You and I got sentenced for the spring to carry hurdles around the track. Do you remember this? We had to go to track practice every day for like a month and move the hurdles for track practice.
I vaguely remember that, yeah. How in the world have I forgotten that?
Well, my only question is, how many times did you take a knife to the track?
Okay, but... Okay,
no, I'm just asking.
Fair enough.
Well, answer the question first.
Could have been a few if I had it in like... Now, I never took one to school.
Okay, well, that's important.
Right.
And then, so how many times did you take it to the track, which is at the school?
Probably never.
Okay, cool. That's all I wanted to ask.
But you're allowed to carry a knife. There's nothing illegal about carrying a knife.
On school property?
Was it a utility knife? Was it a... And again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Fair.
I think that the response... This kid was instigating. So he approached them, sat in the wrong tent. The Metcalf... what's his first name?
Austin.
Austin, thank you. I keep wanting to say... I don't know what I was trying to say. But yeah, Austin Metcalf approached him and said, hey, you're in the wrong tent.
Or something like that.
Or something like
that.
that.
Maybe inflammatory, maybe get the heck out. Or,
right, maybe,
words.
yeah. That wasn't what people have said. The accounts haven't been that. It's just been, hey, you're in the wrong tent, because these are team tents set up all over the place. And he tells them, according to the police report, but try to do something and see what happens. So Correct. He was there, therefore instigating further conflict. And when DJ, I guess, or not, DJ Metcalf is what I keep trying to say. Austin, I apologize for that. Austin gets up and is pushing him to remove him. And this is the point where he stabs him in the heart. So there's a lead up to it. He went into the tent, refused to leave the tent, then instigated by saying, put your hands on me, try to make me move and see what happens, or put your hands on me and see what happens. When he did, he responded in an over-escalated way that, in my opinion, says he was there to conduct violence.
Yeah, I just think it's really confusing. I want to acknowledge the family. And I watched the press conference yesterday with Mr. Anthony's mom, and man, she seems like a really great mom, and I mean that. And I believe her when she says all the things she says about, like, we have tried to raise them in a 2-parent home and the right way, and my husband worked so hard and tried to provide for our family. I believe all those things. And I believe that teenagers sometimes make really bad decisions. And unfortunately, this costs somebody a life.
Yeah.
And look, I know nothing about this gentleman, Carmelo, and he might be a really great kid. He might be an honor roll student. He might be the captain of the debate team or whatever, any other important high school things you want to say. And maybe he made an unbelievably bad decision in a moment. But it starts with exactly what you said. He took a knife to a track meet, which has nothing to do with a track meet. Then he inflamed or he elevated the decision-making process a couple of different times. And look, I've been a hormonal teenager. I've made bad decisions. So have you. But this one cost somebody a life. And for us to diminish the impact of that decision and go out and crowdsource and fund this impossibly bad decision is just super confusing. Like, if he made a bad decision, let that be it. Hey, you made a bad decision. And sadly, we as a family, and you specifically, are going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And I wish it wasn't true. But we don't need to go out and solicit hundreds of thousands or more dollars from the community to rationalize why, hey, it's okay. No. Austin Metcalf lost his life.
Yeah. Well, and this is Brandon Tatum's take. He actually talked about this family not just getting $500,000 in donations for GoFundMe, but that means there's enough people out there with some disposable cash willing to donate $500,000 to someone who, in cold blood, took the life of another kid.
And told him beforehand, I'm going to do this if you try me.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't like, so the self-defense narrative for me doesn't make sense, right? Because you and I have had conflict together.
Yeah.
You and I have had conflict with other people. And under no circumstances have I ever thought to myself, I'm mad at Jared. Let me grab my knife. Yeah. I'm going to tell him if he comes at me again, I'm going to stab him in the heart.
Well, and this is something that I was going to reference, before I had this pulled up. This is one instance, but there are literally thousands of them that I can think of where violence like this, this is a lack of respect for authority. This is a pattern of violence that we're seeing, I strongly believe, from generally fatherless households, but you're also the average of the top 5 people that you hang out with. So what violence has entered your life through your relationships or whatever. But this right here and the countless videos like it is telling me there's a lack of authority, there's a lack of caring about what is right and wrong, and that you're willing to take swings at a cop, right? It's unnecessary, unwanted violence that could be de-escalated, but we see this time and time again. So why the blathering about all this is that a young man who is in a culture of violence, and he was in a relatively upscale neighborhood, but that violence comes from somewhere. If it's not coming from your parents, it's coming from the people that you're hanging out with, where you even have the desire or the lack of care about taking deadly violence against someone else. You know what I'm saying?
For folks who don't know, Frisco, Texas is let me rephrase that. Frisco, Texas was a small hamlet about 25, 30 miles north of downtown Dallas. How do I know this? I lived there.
Yeah.
Okay. When I moved there, the sign in Frisco, Texas on the corner of Preston Road and 121, State Highway 121, said population 34,000. That population is now north of 250, I believe.
Wow.
It's an extremely wealthy North Dallas suburb. It's where the Dallas Cowboys headquarters is. It is extraordinarily privileged. And so when Carmelo's mom goes online there on this press conference and says, hey, we're doing things right, I believe her. Like, she seems like a really reasonable mom.
Yeah.
And it seems like he made an unbelievably bad decision. And that sucks, but I can't get behind the idea that we're rationalizing and funding him and yeah, the bad decision making.
Yeah. I mean, but people can say and will say anything in front of a camera.
Right.
It's there's they always said, my father-in-law used to always say there's no bad kids, there's just bad parents. That's
And as the only one of us that's actually a parent, I can affirm that. Yeah, I've strived to not be a bad parent. So
right. That's his thing. And if it could be parents are too busy to pay attention or to mentor their kids or whatever. I don't know. Pick your reason, but it's your responsibility to teach them morals and values. And if this woman was doing all the right things and this family was doing all the right things, how does their son get to the point where he instigates and then commits a deadly act against someone else, seemingly by the initial police reports looking for that type of conflict?
Well, to his credit, let me rephrase that. That sounds very, very poorly worded. He doesn't get any credit. He made an unbelievably bad decision. And he was willing, apparently, according to the police report, after it happened, to be like, yeah, it was me. I did it. And so I applaud his courage to not run away and be like, he hurt me, he hit me. Like, he was like, no, I did that. I'm the guy that did that. And that's exactly what he should have done. Correct? But something happened. Something happened in his brain to depart from reality, because under no circumstances, which is where we started this story, under no circumstances do you take a knife with the intention of hurting someone to attract meat. It's just that's not living in reality.
Yeah,
it's just not.
Well, but is the plastic in the water or the I mean, is it the I don't know, chemicals in the food? What is causing all this stinking violence? Is what I want to know.
A good question from yesterday with the FSU school shooting, right?
Yeah.
A career law enforcement officer's son takes her service weapon and goes and murders people at the FSU's campus. And yeah, we can go down that rabbit hole. That's probably a different podcast. We can go down that rabbit hole about all the things society is impacting our teenagers now. And I have 2 teenagers, and so I'd fight this battle daily. But you're not wrong to think that it's the plastic in the foods or whatever else. The point is, it was wrong, and I can't get behind crowdsourcing and funding something that just is black and white, man. If one of my kids murders somebody, I'm going to be heartbroken for, most of all, the victim, and then secondarily for my child who made that unbelievable decision. But I'm not going to go out and ask for generic taxpayer, hardworking people to support me because I'm living in a rich North Dallas suburb. What? What are you talking about?
It's just very misguided on the people. It's proof. People just take what the media says, they run with it. This guy was a victim, largely because of his melanin, is how that's going to be portrayed.
They made it a race thing.
Yeah, it's everything becomes a race thing. It's a race thing when you deport an MS-13 gang member. It's a race thing when this kid gets stabbed. And then I don't know if you've seen this Parasite that's their spokesperson. He's a Al Sharpton on crack. I mean, it is really wild. Let me play a little bit of this because I think I've got some of his content. And he was talking about
so it don't be asked.
Mr. Metcalf went to the press conference. I don't know if you heard this.
Oh yeah,
went to the press conference, and this guy was making a big stink about it.
And all I'm going to say, so it don't be asked later, is that was disrespectful. And just shows you all the character who is not invited. He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family, but he did it. And so I say to people, actions speak louder than words. Okay?
Yeah, you stab somebody.
What he has failed into is the political operatives that want to make this thing a political thing of hate, yet bigotry, and yet racism.
There you go.
There you go. Play the word.
Play the word. You got to get the word salad in there.
Yeah.
Bigotry and racism. Because a father who lost one of his sons showed up at a press conference where this guy was talking about the weather. He's a convicted felon, by the way.
Correct.
he was talking about the weather being a contributing factor. Why were they even having the track meet if there was the possibility of thunder? I mean, just the most off the wall, insane nonsense.
I love to go to counseling. Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Every time I go to counseling, therapy for folks who want to call it that way, I get healthier, right? It's like going to get an oil change in your car. And so, yeah, if you're in counseling, that's called blame shifting. That's a big word. It's like, if you're a domestic abuser, I hit you because you made me mad. Oh, wait, so that's my fault? Sorry, that's what that's called. I stabbed you in the heart and you died because you made me mad.
Yeah.
Back to the MS-13 comment, under no circumstances does that make sense. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense for us to have a twice deported, twice convicted MS-13 member in the United States. And it doesn't make sense, oh, by the way, who's illegally in the United States. And it doesn't make sense for us to crowdsource and fund someone who killed somebody and they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And we can rationalize teenage brains or bad decisions or blah, blah, blah. That's all blame shifting. He just did it. And he said he did it.
Yeah. Well, senators going to go stand up for him, and then you've got the people crowdsourcing this, and now they're taking action against the family, against the Metcalf family, and they swatted the guy.
Yeah, of course.
Now, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you know that I talk about swatting all the time because it's very popular to do this against conservative commentators. They're trying to unalive, which I have to say that for YouTube. I hate that word, but they want police to show up unannounced, SWAT, and with their arms drawn, firearms drawn, and they want to go into the home of a conservative.
Can I say a comment that you might have to delete later?
Yeah.
Okay. Unalive is like saying, it's like the transgender comment of humanity. I mean, that's real, right?
Yeah,
You're like, I'm a man, but I think I'm a woman. Is like saying I'm unalive. Are you saying you're dead? No, nope, not at all.
It's just YouTube's stupid censorship. You can't say the M word. You can't say, if you say...
Don't say it.
Yeah, if you say the S word, for unaliving yourself, any of these words, they'll get your video banned.
Of course.
It's so stupid.
All right.
We just want to be able to talk to you people and be upfront, honest, and completely open, which we can do on Rumble. Maybe we should do Rumble-only episodes. But the idea is that they find conservative commentators usually, and they make a false claim, say there's gunfire in the house, that there's drugs in the house, that there's people being held hostage. SWAT shows up, and they hope that when they do, the person responds, and they are basically unalived by the police. So they did this to the father, or to the family of the kid who was killed by Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Because because A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, sorry. That doesn't. No, actually, that doesn't make sense. I guess I'm wrong. It makes me think about the protester, and forgive me because I've forgotten his name in his state, but it makes me think about the peaceful protester during the Biden administration that showed up to peacefully protest, not armed conflict, not storm the doors, peacefully protest an abortion clinic. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, the next week, whatever it was, the FBI with SWAT teams, raid his home and at guns drawn, draw his children out of the home. I think he had a lot of kids, like 6 or 7 kids under, gunfire. I mean, not gunfire, but under guns,
having firearms held on them.
Firearms held on them at 6 o'clock in the morning because he peacefully protested an abortion clinic. Like, again, guys, come back to the place where common sense adds up. Yeah. We don't have to have an MS-13 member who's been twice deported and twice convicted in this country. We don't have to fund somebody who murders somebody. We just don't need to do that. Like, it's an impossibly bad decision. I'm sad for that kid. Like, that sucks. And I wish you hadn't done that. And I bet you wish you hadn't done that too. And we don't need to raid the victims of a murder.
Wow. I mean,
make this make sense.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to make it make sense. But you can. I mean, it's again, man, what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, it's a worldview problem. People see that because, again, politics and culture have now merged. Politics is part of the culture, which is why we do this here. We meet people where they're having the discussion, which is about cultural and political things.
Sure.
but we want to interject our worldview into it. We want people to see our worldview and see that in every aspect, it's a better worldview.
Sure.
But when you don't have a worldview, when politics and social justice and all that becomes your guiding star as opposed to a higher authority, then you're going to say, well, because of the checkbox that wokeness tells me to check, or that is part of this crime, I have to support this person. Even though deep down, I believe a lot of leftists don't actually believe this own hype. They probably are at a protest, some of them, and thinking, this doesn't seem quite right.
Which is what you pointed to before the show, because you were talking about before we went live or when it started recording, that some of this just doesn't actually add up, right? When you show up to some of these things, you're like, oh, I'm not sure that passes the sneeze test. Maybe it doesn't. I mean, I saw one yesterday of a high school athlete, female high school athlete, who showed up at her school board bravely and stood in front of her school board and said, hey, I had to change in my locker room in front of a biological male who says he's female. But he was fully dressed, sitting in our locker room, just observing females changing.
Oh my gosh. Where was this?
I don't remember. We can look it up. But it's one of those things, like it doesn't pass the sniff test. It doesn't A plus B doesn't equal C in this. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It doesn't make sense. And you can't make it make sense by talking about it or saying humanity, forgiveness, kindness. Like, yes, all those things. Like, I am guided by, Jared is guided by biblical principles of, like, today, of all days, Jesus went to the cross to die for our sins because we deserved death, right? We deserved death we couldn't pay for. So, yes, all of those things. And also, at some point, you have to say, this doesn't pass the sniff test. This doesn't make any sense. I can't put LeBron James in the WNBA and be like, I'm sure it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's not going to be fine, guys.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. He'll average 100 points a game and no one else will ever score.
Right.
Okay. Like, it's not going to work out for anybody. And a competitive athlete would agree.
There was she was a social justice warrior, transgender person that was on Piers Morgan not too long ago. And actually, I think I brought her up in the video, and I could probably find it. But she was making an argument with Riley Gaines that, we should do away with the Paralympics. That they should be allowed and should be competing with everybody. One Olympics for everybody.
Sure.
Which makes perfect sense, right?
Perfect sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And you could see, I mean, Riley her response was, I mean, she literally hands in her face like, what are you talking about?
saying?
Are you kidding me?
One of my cousins who lives, 3 miles that way, was blown up in combat. You know him.
Yeah.
And lost a leg and some other fragment body parts here and there, but competed in the Warrior Games because that's what he was able to do at that point, right? Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's what you're able to do. Be proud of that. Celebrate what you're able to do, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back to the beginning of the show. The MS-13 member. I'm like, what are we talking about? This isn't a Trump issue. This isn't Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
I'm no apologist for Donald Trump all the time, and yet this has nothing to do with him.
Yeah, it doesn't.
He didn't deport him twice. He didn't tell the courts twice to convict him. He didn't sign him up for MS-13. None of that happened.
Yeah. Well, it's. I'm going to play this stat for you, but this is where a lot of the I guess negative rhetoric is coming from. This was played by this is NBC.
NBC, yeah.
Have you seen this video?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. Let's play this for everybody.
White women with at least a college degree, the only group of white voters that really kind of is on the left politically, aligned with progressive causes, democratic politics. Give you an example here. It's that DEI question, right here, that we asked about in our poll. We had 2 big statements we read to voters. Basically, do you want to continue DEI programs or do you think they should be ended? And again, look at this divide here. White men, no degree, end it. White men with a degree, end it, they say. White women, no degree, end it, they say, by double digits. And then white women with a college degree, completely different by a nearly 40-point margin. They say to continue DEI.
And that's just that. But this is clear along all these social issues, all these political issues. I want to know how much of that 500,000 that they gave to Carmelo Anthony came from white liberal women with college degrees.
Which, again, I think it bears fruit for us to acknowledge, hey, these aren't bad human beings. I think they're just not using their whole brain. I don't know if we're going to get canceled from YouTube to say this, but my boss now, he says, don't half-ass anything, whole-ass it.
Right.
And so if that gets me kicked off YouTube,
No,
I'm sorry.
that won't. No, it won't.
But for what it's worth, like, if that stat is actually true, I don't trust anything NBC says anymore.
But if it goes against the leftist narrative, I would trust it more than,
well,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah, for sure. But here, my point is, like, I just don't actually understand. I don't actually understand. And I have a family member who's a line of the left. Everything that I say is bad, and everything that they say is good.
Sure,
right?
sure.
And I'm willing to have that civil discourse. I'm willing to sit here and have that person sit in the chair across from me and be like, yeah, let's talk about these things. That person thinks, no, you're an idiot. I'm like, oh, what a polarizing topic, because as we've talked about before, there's a great country music song that talks about, I wish my daddy was, or I wish daddy could get the veterans to help me, the Alabama song.
The Song of the South.
Song of the South. They ought to get a rich man to vote like that.
Right.
The left was the party of blue collar people for their history. Mm-hmm. That's what Kansas. I'm not going to get that.
Well, no, they were racist. They were bigots. They were bigots.
I'm not going to get down.
They still are. They were racist in the '60s. They are racist today.
That's a different topic. I wouldn't go there.
Let's get into it, because that's one that'll fire me up.
Yeah, exactly. My point is, for their history, the left has been the party of blue collar people. It's been the party of working hard Americans who weren't able to see, like, something beyond what's right in front of them. They were influenced by what's right in front of them. If you were around racism, you became racist. If you were around socialism, you became socialist. And that has switched entirely. Like, we have now become a society where the Republican Party, or conservatism is what I prefer to call it, because I don't want to be a party of anybody. Conservatism is the party of, if you'll pardon the air quotes, inclusivity. It's the party of, if you want to have a conversation, come over here and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
If it's the party of, hey, I believe in the common goal, but it has to have some common sense behind it.
Yeah. I would push back on some of that. I think the Democrat Party has been, if you look at them over the past 100 years, they have been remarkably consistent.
Yeah.
And they co-opted, through unions, being the party of the working man, and it was really there was some of it, Wall Street liked Republicans for a while, or it looked that way, that the big business was behind the Republican Party.
Right.
If you really follow the politics, that hasn't entirely been the case. And the left still today, big money was what was funding the unions. Unions got an immense amount of power. They've held that power. They still have that power, which is why we pay an awful lot for a lot of American-made products, because you got to pay a union guy building a Chevy, $40 an hour to start.
Sure.
That doesn't help the cost of it. But anyway, they had positioned themselves to be that, but they have always been a party of socialists, from Woodrow Wilson and FDR and LBJ, to name some of the big ones. But this progressive movement has been a core component of them forever. And racism, their racism, which they are the party of racists, despite how much they scream, in the 60s.
Don't say that.
It was a divisive thing in the 60s. Jim Crow was an evil that we had in this country. Slavery was an evil that we had in this country. All of that was done by the Democrat Party. 100%
No,
support.
wait, sorry. I want to correct you. Abraham Lincoln created slavery, right? And he is definitely the hero of the Democrats, right? Because he's a Democrat.
No.
Wait, hold on, say that again.
No.
Abraham Lincoln was not a Democrat?
Oh, he's a Republican, of course.
Oh, man, that is really curious.
But if you look at the policies now, they are the same. They are socialist. They are confiscation. Confiscation is a key component of the Democrat Party. All their platform is ultimately aimed at confiscation of our wealth, because they can spend it better, and also the dividing of the people in order to keep them divided for purposes of maintaining power, it's still today. They are doing the same thing now that they were doing in 1965, and they are making it honestly culturally popular to have a black-only graduation at a college, to have safe spaces for certain races, to not allow white people into it. So it went from white people, white Democrats keeping them out, to saying, well, we can give them money, buy their votes, we can do all of these nefarious things politically, and then eventually we can divide them again, but we can just have them as the hero in the scenario where they are basically make the division that we ultimately want to happen, make it a heroic act rather than an evil act. Like we tried it in the 60s, and it was evil for us to tell
Right,
white.
because it's heroic to keep a gang member from a terrorist organization illegally in our country. So let's send a sitting senator down there on your taxpayer dollars, Maryland. Good job.
But it's heroic to say we're going to have a no whites allowed graduation ceremony.
Yeah.
And now it's that same division from Jim Crow South. They talk about having different dorms, different classes, all of these things based on race. It's the exact same, except now you're a hero for doing that for your school.
You're so brave.
You're so brave.
I'm so proud of you.
No
regrets.
Yeah,
No regrets.
man.
Not just one.
And these are problems you can only have in this country. As much as I love
Well,
this country.
and back to my comment about my Chinese colleague.
Yeah.
I mean, her name's Julie, and she will never hear this podcast, so I can say her name.
Right.
But her point was really well made. She's like, man, it's an enormous privilege for a citizen of the world to come to the United States
Yeah.
legally. And I don't know Julie's political affiliation. I don't know if she grew up wrecked by the CCP. I don't know if she grew up aspiring to be in a democracy. I don't know.
Yeah.
And what I do know is I believe her when she says it's a privilege to be in the United States, and she wants to treat that with the respect it deserves.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that my wife had a ride last week from an immigrant from Turkey, and he has an American flag behind his contact card on his phone. So he's been in the country for about 30 years, and I asked him, Shanuda, tell me about your contact card. He's like, it's the biggest source of pride in my life. I've always wanted to be, and he's an American citizen now. He's like, I've always wanted to be an American citizen because I grew up in something that was different, and I heard about what was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved here legally knowing it was, and it's the joy of my life to work every day.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, man.
That's a perspective that legal immigrants have. And I think people, maybe it's people live in a movie, a TV dream world. Yeah. And they think, oh, the way I envision them are these people coming here like they were back in, when the Irish left Ireland, to come here to America when we were flooded with immigrants from Italy and all kinds of places.
You saying that because I'm Irish?
Yeah. No, but I'm part Irish. Yeah. I got a little bit Irish.
Full butter.
I do. I got a little bit of Irish in me. Scottish. Scot-Irish is what they call it. It's like the merging of Scottish and Irish. But, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? They envision this movie scene. Everything's moving in slow motion, and they're coming here to start a better life and all of this. Meanwhile, they're coming across the border with, balloons of heroin in their bodies or whatever, backpacks full of drugs and fentanyl, trafficking people, and the inability to it's out there everywhere. If you pay attention to not the mainstream media and you follow content all over the internet,
right,
you'll get a different perspective. But when you just lock in to the algorithm and lock into the narrative, and you don't want to see anything outside of that, like an MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, whatever it happens to be.
Whatever mainstream media means now.
Right. It just feeds that, and you say, well, I don't need the other perspectives. That's not important because they're evil, right?
Yeah.
It's evil. It's racist to be a Republican.
Yeah, and I think for folks that are, I don't know if there are any followers of Continue Freedom, but that are centrist or left, but if there are, or if the gerbils from the government are listening to us, and they want to fact check you, I encourage you to go listen to the Secretary of Homeland Security under Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas, testifying before Congress.
Yeah.
And one specific thing, and again, I work frequently at the border or near the border, And so I'm around people that are impacted by this a lot. And unfortunately, you get to come a few times a year to do this as well. But so this is on congressional record. It is not up for debate. He's testifying under penalty of perjury. Mm-hmm. This is true. And a senator from Texas holds up in front of Congress some wristbands or colored bands and says, "Hey, what are these?" And Alejandro Mayorkas, under penalty of perjury, says, "I'm not sure." Now, this person was responsible for the security of the United States of America for 4 years. He's not sure what those are.
Yeah.
And what are those things? Those are the wristbands that traffickers send children over the border with. And the different colors denote the different value they assigned to that child.
Jeez.
And the person responsible for the security of the United States border didn't know what they were. Wonder why? He'd never visited the border.
Yeah.
Right? And Senator Cruz, who visits the border frequently, holds these up in front of Congress, in front of the Senate, says, "What are these?" And the person responsible for keeping America safe doesn't know.
I mean, maybe he gets his information from the mainstream media too. This is how much time they've spent talking about the Maryland man, the illegal immigrant, versus the victim of illegal immigration.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about it, or they just lie. I think Alejandro Mayorkas, that guy, he has bold-faced lied in front of Congress. I wish there was more.
No, he wouldn't do that. He's a good dad. He's a good human being.
I wish that there was an
Virtue
actual
signal. That would never happen.
Yeah. I need an actual penalty to take place. I want to see somebody get in actual trouble for perjuring themselves in front of Congress. And you really can't, because you have to have a federal agency to go after it and charges and all that mess. So they never go through the rigmarole, which is why Lloyd Austin could sit in front of the American people and lie. General Milley could lie. Alejandro Mayorkas could lie.
Also why
Buttigieg could lie.
It's also why Biden pardoned every member of his family.
Yeah. Did he, or was it the auto pen? Which staffer did it? You heard about the auto pen, right?
Obviously.
Bro, that he didn't know what he signed. In fact, some of the ones that were signed while he was actually on Capitol Hill.
Separately, can we actually just pour one out for President Biden, because he tried to fumble through a speech 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Bless his whole heart, man. Bless the whole of his heart, because he didn't know if he was talking about the McDonald's drive-thru or if he was talking about deportation or Jesus. He's not even sure. He got up and started talking about words that we don't use anymore, like colored people.
Yeah. Did he seriously?
1,000,000%.
Oh my gosh.
And we just need to go ahead and park President Biden, or the person that appears to be President Biden. We need to go ahead and park him in an old folks home and give him some soft crackers and get him like a warm blanket and some tea at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah. I read somewhere that he was trying to get $300,000 a speech, and he can't make it happen. Because he required, I think 10. Who was it that was reporting on it? But they said he needed 10 staffers, private plane, $300,000 in payments for a speech. I mean, come on, dude. That guy's he's he's a walking corpse.
Yeah, you can touch in the comments if you want, but man, the highlights from his speech were brutal is the most generous thing you can say. Like, that guy needs to never make a speech again. God love him.
That was elder abuse. That whole presidency
genuinely,
was elder abuse.
Absolutely, 100%. It was his first appearance since the inauguration.
Yeah.
And it was awful, man. It was one of these things you're like, gosh, I feel so bad for him and Dr. Jill, and I hope that they're able to enjoy retirement and can go sit on the beach where he spent most of his presidency, ironically.
Yeah.
I hope he's able to go sit on the beach and do whatever he needs to do. But go back to common sense comments. We don't need to let MS-13 members into the United States illegally. We don't need to crowdsource for them. And we don't need to let President Biden ever speak in public again.
It makes me, when you look back, I've watched some old Biden videos, from his presidency. the stark difference between him and Donald Trump, it is, I mean, it's unbelievable that Donald Trump is moving at the pace he's moving, functioning the way he's functioning. I mean, I realized how much I missed Oval Office press conferences, and he's doing them all the time.
All the time. And there's no question off the table. Like, ask me anything you want.
Yeah.
Let's go.
He's quick, he's sharp. I think he's slowed down a little bit, but I don't think it's a health slowdown. I think he's just kind of hardened himself. First time around, he was.
Could it be that he got shot in the head and he's realizing that, hey, man, life is fragile. They shot me in the head, which is probably a different podcast, but.
Did you see his message?
Conspiracy theory.
Did you see his Easter message?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that, okay, here's my question. I know, well, we won't get into it because we're about to run out of time here. We've only got a couple minutes left. But his Easter message, do you think that was straight from him? Do you think that was from somebody else? I shouldn't judge or throw that out there that way, but I've just had so many conversations with people about where he actually sits with his faith. He's never going to be an openly, I say openly, he's not going to come out and be, professing
waving the Bible.
Right. He's not going to be waving the Bible or professing Christ at a press conference.
Sure.
I don't necessarily think that that's all that important to do.
Let me answer you in a couple different directions. My wife has a really close friend who, let me say this in a way that can't get me chased on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
My wife has a really close friend who's quite familiar with the President of the United States, the current President of the United States. And I asked this person during the first administration.
And when, without divulging it, this person is very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without moving past that, I'll just say I asked this person during the first administration, hey, how do you put up with some of the mean tweets? And I don't remember how I generically said it, but whatever. And she said, hey, do you trust me? Do you know me? I said, I do. And she said, then you can trust and know that what you see publicly is not what you see privately. I was like, oh, okay. Adult comment. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Separately, I've never been in a gunfight. And you have. And other people that I'm friends with have. And I think that probably fundamentally shapes you. Mm-hmm. And I think that he was fundamentally impacted by being shot at.
Yeah.
And he was almost killed twice. Let's say if we're super honest, right? Because the other nut job brought guns and bombs and stuff to the golf course. But look, he was shot in the head, man. And I tell people all the time with stuff I do at work, where you and I were a couple weeks ago, if you don't know Jesus, you're going to meet him on the way.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? And I think it's probably likely that he had like a, pardon the expression from the South, but a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
He's like, holy crap. I almost had a bullet, 6 inches into my head, and I don't. And I'm not in control of that. I'm not in control of this. But I am in control of doing the next right thing now. And back to where we started, that might look like removing a Maryland father who happens to be a twice convicted gang member from a terrorist organization out of the country.
Yeah. He's professed it, in certain ways and he said it in podcasts and other interviews, right, one-on-one interviews, that yes, I believe that, God saved me for a purpose. So I think he's in a situation where he can act. He is acting the plan that he had in place. Obviously, all this was prepared, the deportations and the economy, all these decisions, the executive orders undoing what Biden had done. All that was in place well before he became president. He's been working on it for 4 years. And then his life was saved on the campaign trail by fractions of an inch. He says, okay, obviously I'm on the right path, and that these things need to happen. I think that's the way I envision it. Maybe I'm making it a bigger deal than it is. But you couple all that, you put all that together, put us in the situation we're in now. Americans are liking, by and large, people are okay with what he's doing.
Sure.
And we knew that the violence, the political violence, like against Tesla and and all that, we knew the political violence was going to come. I'm still waiting for the summer of love that we saw, back when BLM was burning cities to the ground. I'm waiting for that monstrous
because
revolt.
that's loving.
Right. They're trying to do it with the Palestine, with the the pro-Palestinian movement, where the
Wait,
paid
because
protesters
sending
are out
$50
there.
million to Palestine for climate control is the responsibility of the EPA?
Yeah, yeah. So he's just handling it. He's weathering it well. He's handling it well, and I think he's being guided. In the back of his mind, I think he's got a soft, still voice.
I think he has a different look. This is the most generic thing we can say. He has a different tenor in his voice as a president this time, and I think that he benefits from being out of office for 4 years.
Yeah.
I think he was able to mobilize people that agreed with him. I mean, people are going to see this and say Chuck and Jared are Pete Hegseth apologists. That's not the point. Pete Hegseth made mistakes as a human being. I have too.
Yeah,
And he wants a strong military to protect the citizens of the United States, right? And so I think President Trump was able to use the 4 years he was out of office to mobilize people that had the same kind of common core values and say, yeah, this makes sense. Let's go after the same things together. Let's go chop wood. And they're doing that. And I think it's with a different tenor. It's with a different voice. He's more calm, cool, and collected now than he was 8 years ago. And I think it's benefiting the United States of America.
yeah. Well, and I think that how in life you get into a certain circumstance and you're like, why am I going through this? Why am I going through this? Why did it happen like this? Why did life happen like this? Why did whatever this conflict was happen like this? And then you get a few years down the road and you're like, okay, I kind of see why. I still believe God has a plan for this country, and I believe that because prayer is really on the rise in America.
Sure.
Churches are actually seeing some growth. The traditional church that's going woke, a lot of those are going by the wayside. I could say the United Methodists is a prime example. They got split in half, and if not more so, and the global church is breaking away, saying, no, we are the ones that still support these
Preach the Bible.
right? That preach the Bible, support these morals, these values, and people are at the Democrats and the left, the political left, has put us in a situation where you really have to choose sides, and the side that seems to be, in a lot of ways, winning is the right side. The right political right.
Yeah.
The conservative side, the conservative Christian side is seeing growth because as conservative networks and YouTube channels and all this stuff are growing and expanding, they're pulling them into that fold, and there's enough of, talk of faith, talk of Jesus in that world that we're pulling people over that way, which is, I talk to folks all the time and say, I don't even talk about politics. Who cares about politics? I'm there. It's almost disconnect from this world. But again, I still believe we have to come into this world because we got to live in this world, and that's where we can engage people where they are having the conversations and inject those things into it to give them a better worldview, a happier worldview, one that is a soul-saving worldview. You know what I mean?
People love to say, and air quote people of the left love to say that the United States is not a Christian country. The reality is it was founded by people who had Christian values, right? Who wanted freedom from religious restriction. He wanted the freedom to worship Jesus in the way that they and God the way that they envisioned. And that's still true. Now, does that mean that every leader we have in history of the United States is, God-centric, Jesus-loving? No, I don't think that's true. People are flawed.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is a country that was founded in Christian values that deserves the opportunity to continue to evolve this experiment of democracy and this idea of a republic. And the idea that our best days can be still in front of us can be true. But we have to come back to what guided institutional decisions to begin with, which is 1 + 1 = 2. Mm-hmm. It would never make sense at 12 years old. One of my kids is 12. It would never make sense at 12 years old for me to tell my 12-year-old, hey, we're going to let a gang member who's been twice deported illegally in this country be our neighbor. Mm-hmm. Well, can I go rob the bank then? Well, no, you can't do that. Well, why can they do that? That's illegal. Yeah. I mean, we have to come back to a place where common sense makes it has value. Common sense has value, right? And I think that that's possible for us in the United States, but we have to have more people like this talking about it. And I question the viewers, for anybody that's watching or talking about this, ask yourself, are you a person that's willing to have a common sense discussion with someone else from the other side? And if you're not, why?
Yeah.
One of the guys that works for me, his name's Spencer. In case you watch this, Spencer and I regularly go through vigorous debate. And candidly, I think Spencer's closer to my side of the aisle, but he loves the idea of having a difference of opinion. Great, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And I also have family members, which sucks, that think that I am this bigoted, white privilege, hateful human being. I'm like, I don't think that about you.
Yeah.
That's weird. Can we have a conversation? No, you suck. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think the arguments that they make on the left are so difficult to make that yes, a man can become a woman. Yes, a woman can become a man. Yeah, the sexes are interchangeable. That no, we can live whatever lifestyle you want, even if you are a person of faith. If you're a Christian, no, that's okay. You still can actively engage in whatever sinful behavior you happen to be in, and it's okay. We have to be accepting of that. And
Sure.
That's not to say, again, we could get really deep philosophically about that, but everybody is sinful. You're always going to sin, but it's the act of trying to stay out of that sin. But their political worldview is so diluted that they say, no, not only do you have to accept it, but you have to allow them to do this, to live that life. But now you have to take an active part in that, which is what critical race theory is. It's what the DEI stuff is.
All of it.
It's saying you have to take an active part in something that does not fit your morals and values.
Right.
And if you don't, you are the evil.
You are the wrong.
You are the...
So Spencer, my friend, he's a tea drinker in the morning. I drink coffee.
Yeah.
So if I tell him to drink coffee and he says, no, thank you, does that make him bigoted and evil and racist? No, I think it just makes him a human.
Yeah. Well, boy, we could go a lot of ways with this stuff. But on that note, we're a little over 1 hour. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. It's been a blast, Chuck. I'm going to have to get you back in studio again.
Amen.
Anytime you're in, let's make it happen. But for everybody out there, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. Hit us in the comments below. Normally, I go live. I did not do a live today because I got what seemed seemingly a bout of food poisoning. So I've been struggling through
Bad
this
burrito.
Oh, my gosh. But normally we are live starting on Wednesdays, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Just depends. Sometimes I'm traveling for work and I don't make it happen. But come back and join us. I truly appreciate you guys. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next episode.